like to watch live. So just get that going. Right, good evening or good afternoon, everybody. This is Shay from Inspired Stage, and I'm joined today by our very wonderful guest, Sonia Choquette. At Inspired Stage, we ask some of the greatest minds in the world, if you had 10 minutes to share your wisdom with the world, what would you say? And Sonia probably needs no introduction, but she truly is one of the greatest minds in the world. She is the go-to person in the world of intuition, and I know there's a lot of people out there, many of them trained by you actually, Sonia, who teach on this subject, but you really are the master. And you know, thank you for the work that you've done for all of us around that. She's written 27 books, but read by over 1 million people around the world, and been featured in lots of the most respected media that we can see. So I know Oprah Radio, for example, New York Times Live, and all sorts of other things. So we're really excited to have Sonia with us today to speak to us. And, you know, also thank you personally, because I've also read some of your books and learned from your work, and I can only truly say to my followers how valuable it's been to, you know, create that shift between logic and intuition and how we should really lead our lives. So I wanted to start by asking you the question that we ask everybody. If you had that piece of wisdom to share with the world, what would you say?
I would say that now more than any other time in the world, it's important for us to recognize and allow ourselves to be the spiritual, intuitively guided beings that we are. I don't think people have not had an experience of this inner guidance. I just think they fight it and dismiss it, rationalize it, or look to other people to give them permission to follow it. And so we become disempowered. And if you're not following your inner guidance, then who's leading your life? It's certainly not you. And I think at this point in time, especially given that we are at a significant change point in the world, our inner guidance originates in our heart. Our heart is the aspect of our nature that houses our spirit. Our spirit is the part of us that's connected to the whole. And we can only move forward and succeed personally if we go to that place that connects us to the whole, so we can wholly change the circumstances we're in. So summarizing all that simply is trust your vibes. It's a really smart decision.
Which is also the name of one of your books, and it's a great book, if I may say. Now, I know some of the people who are going to be watching here today probably haven't had that experience of listening to that inner voice of theirs. You know, I work in the world of law, so, you know, it's not necessarily a profession that immediately lends itself to that necessarily. So what would you say to those that are maybe starting on that trust your vibes journey?
Well, what I would say is that we are all born with 6 senses, not 5. And that 6th sense is not, it's not language based, it's not physically based, it's a feeling and an awareness in the heart and in the gut as a place of primary awakening, and then it moves into the throat. So it's a deep inner energy that communicates to all of us, whether we're in resonance with our greatest and best choices, or if we're drifting off. So it's a feedback system that is not rational, it's organic. And that feedback system is accurate and can guide us if we pay attention. I don't believe, Shay, that people aren't familiar with intuition. It's not my experience. So I'm going to just say I don't think that's true. I have been teaching for 40 years around the world, and I don't believe I've ever met any human who has not had at least some direct conscious experience with their intuition. So that's not the challenge. The challenge is valuing it and recognizing it as a legitimate and important feedback system for your well-being. And so what we need to change is our value system to put importance on what is naturally there to guide us. It's like birds have radar, whales have sonar, and we have vibes. So I always say to people, how is your life working out for you? Not listening. So let's start there. And pretty much the feedback is I'm fumbling along. I may even be materially prospering, but I don't feel good in my inner heart and spirit. So I don't think it's a competition with your intellect. I think they're cooperative and they should work together. And if we can begin to recognize that in this period in time, science doesn't dismiss intuition any longer. The question has evolved. It's no longer does it exist. The new question is how does it work? And how does it work for me, more importantly? So if we can just open ourselves to being available and not suspicious, our intuition becomes a tremendous ally and protection for us.
Okay. I think the connection just went for a second there. Could you repeat the last thing that you said? Your intuition comes as an ally.
I think our intuition becomes an ally and a protection that we need to, and when you ask yourself what's intuition for, it is information that helps you make the best decisions. Yeah. So it's in support of your greatest good, even though your intellect can't always understand it.
I'd love to ask you this. So some people hear I think we all do, that inner voice of fear as well. Mm-hmm. So right. I was wondering how we distinguish that between what is the voice that is fear and what is the voice that is intuition.
Well, there's healthy fear and then there is unbased fear. Mm-hmm. Healthy fear is actually part of real intuition. It's warning. It's saying, don't do this, be aware of that. And when you get that kind of intuitive based fear, it's very physical. You'll get the hairs on your arms stand up, or on the back of your neck, or something physical will, because you're actually perceiving an energy that might be threatening to you. Whereas irrational fear is just trying to manage your life strictly through your intellect, and you run up against things you can't control. So you start feeling your limitations, intellectual limitations. You start feeling like, I can't figure this out. I can't, what if it all goes to, falls apart? And that kind of fear, the way to get rid of that is to just name it out loud. Because it's really not fear that interrupts intuition. It's hiding fear. So when you're fearful, your body contracts. Irrational fear is particularly, your body contracts, your breath, you hold your breath, your awareness closes down. So when it's intuition, including picking up on things that would perhaps threaten you, your breath deepens, your awareness expands, you're physically open up, and you are more aware. So when it's irrational fear, it jumps around like a bouncing ball. And when it's intuition, it's steady and stable, and it consistently says the same thing. So there's some very physical things you can pay attention to. Mostly, is your body contracting or is it relaxing? Because intuition creates an opening in your physical body that gives you more to breathe. So that's how you can tell the difference.
Lovely. I like that. Really simple, you know, and to
Mhm.
use the physical as well. It's something that a lot
Totally.
of us can really relate to.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, I
Um,
really want to say intuition is physical. People think it's like
yes.
airy fairy and out here, but actually, your body is the receiver, not your brain, but you
Right.
do feel it. And so, if we can just make that adjustment, we're going to be more inclined to tune into it and pay attention to it.
Fabulous. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be feeling really anxious, particularly right now. A lot of us are at home when we weren't expecting to be. What would you say to give comfort to those people, and what can we be doing in this time?
Well, I think that actually, instead of fighting the circumstances, to accept and to be creative. I feel that our world and the world pace that we've been in, accelerated in, has actually been very disadvantageous to us personally, socially, globally, because we've become very disconnected from our own bodies. We've become disconnected from our own hearts and spirits. We've become conditioned to think of people, other people in the world, as things. We've become
Yes.
insensitive to our planet, and we think of it as a garbage pail. So let's first be grateful that this great reset button is an invitation for us to collectively return back to balance, and that it's actually a gift. It's not a punishment. It's a reset button and a gift. And so I would recommend everybody first approach this with the right attitude. And the right attitude, if you go to the heart, is that even if I feel great and even if I have no problems at all, it's not about me right now. It's about my ability to be someone who makes a very big and significant contribution to the greater good. And this is
Yes.
an interesting opportunity because a great deal of people I've worked for or done work for, have done readings for, have said, what's my life has no purpose. And so guess what? Here's a huge invitation to step into purpose. And the purpose
Yes.
being that I will become a major influencer in putting the life and world back to balance by having a cheerful attitude when I go home, meditating, getting back into my spirit, being a voice of positivity instead of a fearmonger or self-centered, which is, oh, I'm bored, leave me alone. This is so, that is part of the problem of the world. Plus, it's a perfect opportunity to develop your intuition and
Yes.
embrace it as a true gift. So, how do we do that? There's a lot of ways in which you can do it. One of them is to play a little game, and anybody can play this game. It'll be fun. And this game is to approach it as a playful experience, but not an unimportant one, is to actually do what I call automatic writing. So
Okay.
you write a question to your spirit, your higher self, and your guides, your spirit guides. And then you take a breath, you go in, breathe in, let out the sound, drop into the heart space, and then imagine that you were speaking for, writing for, on the behalf of your higher self, your spirit guides, your intuitive self. Answer your own question by writing it down. And you will see that what comes through is very different than what your intellect would offer. And it won't be difficult to come through because your intuition is normal. It's part of you. It just is never asked. So I would say
Right.
that for one is a really fun game. And then I want to offer another fun game because we are We are all socially distancing. We're all at home. I mean, you have to be isolated. And here's another fun, intuitive game. Get with your friends on a Facebook shared live and take turns doing a little telepathy. One person can say, okay, write down. I'm thinking, everybody will say, get a little card, and I'm going to everyone write down an animal. And then you hold the card and you say to your friends, okay, I'm going to send you this message of this animal. And then others have to take a breath and pick up, not just quickly guess randomly without thought, but to see if they can feel it and begin to train us to telepathically communicate to one another. It works. It's fun.
Yeah.
And it'll keep you entertained.
Keep us entertained.
Yeah. Well, I think that intuition is entertaining. One of the best and most surprising gifts is it doesn't just protect you and keep you safe. It also gives you great ideas, helps you connect in non-verbal ways, helps you share ideas. And the other thing that could be fun, and it's a very intuitive thing, is do what I call a bit of psychic improv. One person start and send a message to the group with one line of a story, and have another person add the second line and the second line and the second line. But have the story be about a subject about how can we best serve our own spirits right now, not just some random story, but this story. So each person is invited to draw within and listen to their intuition and express it. And it gets pretty interesting pretty fast.
I love that, and these are all really simple things that people can do at home right now while we're on our own and stuff like that. I love it. You mentioned when you were talking about automatic writing, connecting to your guides.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in your work that you talk about different types of guides that people have. What are some of those guides that everyone has within them or around them?
We have always at least a working system. It's like tiered layers of at least 33 guides working with us at all time. It's not that we have all three talking in our heads at the same time or trying to influence us, but we have spheres, 3 spheres of 11 of supportive angels, joy guides, guides that we call runners who help you find your keys and find, where I left that book, or where's my sweater I'm looking for. We have teacher guides that would in fact bring people to circumstances like this conversation, that point you out to places and put you in opportunities where you learn things that maybe you didn't know where you could find that resource, maybe didn't even know there was such a thing. We have healer guides, and of course, they're certainly working with all of us on the planet right now because we're healing on many levels. We have creative guides, muses, who give us good ideas. I think there's going to be a lot of invention over this period of introspection that we're in created. We have master teachers, and we have light beings. If you're interested, I write about all of this in my book, Ask Your Guides, and later in the year, I'll actually have an updated version of that. But I think that's very reassuring to people right now to know on every level, you're not alone, on every single level. And that's so right now I'm really teaching people to work with your guides because you can feel them. And the way you know your guides are getting through is you get ideas that you would never have thought of on your own.
Yes. This might be a difficult question for you, but do you have a favorite story about how using your intuition really helped you?
Oh, it's only difficult because it's so ongoing, but I will give you a very current one. I was just simple and practical current one. I live in Paris, and I was ready to come and visit my daughter at the end of March. And on last Thursday, I woke up and I just felt I have to go to London immediately. So because I am intuitive and I felt it so strongly and I'm used to not questioning it, I said, okay. So I packed my things. I was on a train on Friday, and then Paris shut down on Saturday. So
Wow.
I would have been housebound through this social distancing by myself, and instead I get to experience this whole wonderful process with my family. And so it's been just, when I got here, it was just, I'm here, it's wonderful. And then all the doors started shutting. So that was
Amazing.
that's my life. You know, I'm always just, and for example, another one is I had an intuition to go see my mom in February. She's 90. And
Wow.
I saw her, I went and saw her at the end of February, 1st of March. I said goodbye to her March 9th and came to Paris. And so I also just had the experience, because who knows how long this quarantine will last, to have spent a wonderful week with my mom. And
Amazing.
it was not stressed. It was lovely. It was fun. It was healthy. She was good. So it's these kinds of daily experiences that just take the stress away, instead of, oh my God, why couldn't I have done this or that? When you work with your intuition, you're ahead of that curve, and you're kind of, it's like you're in the flow, and you're kind of, the doors open instead of closed. So those are just
Amazing.
two very current and very practical recent examples of what is an endless unfolding of guidance in my life, and what I believe is available to everyone. That's my mission. It's what I write about, what my online courses are about, is here, people, no need to fumble in the dark and be scared. You have this inner resource that will take care of you always and reliably. So that was that for me, that answers that question, and that it's just an example that it's moment to moment, day to day opportunities that always are green lights instead of red lights.
I love it. So we talked about, you visiting your mum, and you're staying with, I know you've got two daughters. You've got
Yes.
one in London. Yes.
One in London.
So, wonderful. So, gosh, lots of questions for you. But for those out there that are, may have little children and stuff like that, how do you start teaching your children about this? What do you do with them?
Oh, I love that you asked that question, because I think it's when you should start. And actually, I wrote a book specifically for this, which everybody should take a look at if you have little children. It's called The Intuitive Spark. And the subtitle is Nurturing Intuition in Your Children, Your Family, and You. And the reason I say that is it's because it's a system. Your children are perfectly intuitive when they come in, but they need to belong and depend on you and this family system to survive. If the family system is supportive to intuition and allows your children to actually trust their natural instincts, they'll flourish. If you're a fearful, controlling parent who says, do what I say, and your feelings don't matter, and you're making it up, then it shuts down. And we have that intuition, by the way, mostly developed by the modeling of our mothers.
Wow.
As children, we are so intimately connected to our mothers more than our fathers when it comes to survival, because we come from their bodies. So my mother's gift to me was, when I was growing up, I would ask her questions, and she would say, before I answer, what does your spirit say?
Oh, wow.
She would invite me to check in with myself and express it. And then she would say, well, it's most important to respect and honor your spirit. I raised my daughters the same way. Rather than overriding their inner voice, I was taught to value and listen to it. And I was also taught that it was valued in my home. Another thing that my mother did with me and I've done with my children, and I recommend you do with yours, is we pick up intuitive vibes, especially as children, that we cannot logically validate. We feel things and sense things very accurately, but they may not be evident physically or validated in a material way in that moment, if at all. So when I grew up, I never had to justify my feelings. If I had a feeling, it was treated as solidly as a fact. And the way I was able to communicate is all I had to do is squeeze my mom's hand. And that meant I'm uncomfortable or I'm unsafe or I don't feel good. And that was it. If I squeezed her hand, she said, okay, something's bad vibes here. We got to go. And she always listened and validated that. And I never had to explain. I taught to my children. And I truly believe that's why I have developed, as we all should, such a keen and reliable sense of intuition. I never had to go through any sort of gauntlet of obstacles to stand up for myself. In my home, at least in my family, it was honored. So I think as a mother, that's the best gift you can give your kids. That is the most empowering gift you can give your children. Please do.
Yeah, and my next question was actually going to be, where did it start for you? But you've kind of answered that.
Well, it's a family tradition. My mother's intuitive, her mother's intuitive, but they were guides and seers. So it's and my daughters too. They have already published and are teaching as well. So it is definitely a matriarchal and multi-generational thing, but I don't think it's exclusive to me. I just think we were fortunate enough to have that environment. Yes. Here's another little interesting anecdote too. My mother's deaf, and that is also something. So she would say, I don't hear you, but I hear you. And this, what I hear in my heart is the truth. So we learn to listen with our heart instead of our ears and our intellect. And I've taught my daughters the same. What your heart hears is the truth. And so I think that was probably another significant piece of influence.
It's beautiful. So let me ask this. When did you realize, or how did you go about knowing that, you know, you're going to be one of the foremost teachers in the world teaching people about this? How did you go about that?
You know, I never ever had a moment where I had to choose this path. I came in with this in mind. I was doing reading by the time I was 10, 11, 12. I was teaching classes by 15. I was completely, I never ever had a moment in my life where I thought, should I do this? So clearly my own soul, not, you know, just for me, this was always my sole intention. Always. I've never even created a book proposal. They just come through and go out in the world. And it's kind of a soul mission for me. So in that regard, I am so blessed. But by the same token, I am on a mission. I have not missed a beat on that mission ever. I don't think I've had a day in my life where I've questioned my inner guidance. And frankly, to me, anyone who doesn't trust your inner guidance is the worst form of a handicap, because it's your truth serum, it's your authentic self. So you can get by, as I learned from my mom, without your hearing. You can get by without your sight. You can get by with the loss of maybe a limb or something, but I don't think you can get by nearly as well if you lose connection with your inner voice. I think that would be a terribly complicated, fearful life.
This might be, I'm just so tempted to ask this question, so I'm going to ask
Absolutely.
anyway.
Sure.
Because I know a lot of people out there are going to be asking, what is my soul mission? So you said you were lucky to know that. You know, how can you intuitively know that? What advice
I
would you give
think
to
our
them?
soul mission is very clear when we're young. And it's
Okay.
really just what you love, what you are so in love with that you don't think about it, that it's a pleasure to do it. It's something that brings you fulfillment. But we have to understand a soul mission is not necessarily a job. They are different. It can become a job. It can become a profession if you stick with it and make that choice. But it can also be an avocation. But your purpose is the service you bring to the planet that brings you joy. And that's why I think right now at this point in time with the planet in such disruption, so many doors are open to be of service, and that service is what you can contribute to the planet that helps other people feel loved, inspired, valued, helps the planet feel valued. It can be that you bring order, you can bring inspiration, you can bring groundedness, you can bring communication, you could bring entertainment, but it contributes to the overall light of the planet and the feeling of the spirit being uplifted. So the way to get to your mission so easily is say out loud, not even write. If I weren't afraid, I would.
Love it.
Answer the question. But you have to say it out loud and do it for 3 minutes. In that 3 minutes, you will absolutely name and nail exactly what it is that is your mission. I like to be super practical. I think we waste way too much time trying to figure things out. This will answer your question. If I weren't afraid, I would, and see what comes up. Keep your eyes open when you do this, because if you shut your eyes, you're going to your intellect. Keep your eyes open, look around and notice what's in front of you. Breathe and answer that question out loud. If you can do it with a friend, do it with a friend. If not, record your own voice, because you'll hear it and feel and sense when you're really tapping into what's truly the answer.
Beautiful. Sonia, I'm so grateful for the time that you've given me today,
Really.
and all our audience. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with everyone out there before we wrap this up?
I do. I want everybody to know that the planet is changing vibration, and that's a good thing. And it's a big, big, frightening disruption. But not to listen to what's being said on the news other than the most practical self-care tips and the social care tips. Because most of what you're hearing is what could happen, not what is happening. And that this is temporary. And it will be even more temporary if we all cooperate with a good and loving interest in contributing to the greater good. That it's normal to be upset and fearful, but if you create internal routines, meditate, pray, do something creative every day, maybe these tools I offered, and let that be your new normal, we'll get through this and it's all going to be okay.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. If our lovely audience would like to connect with you further, where's the best place that they can do that?
Well, they can do that by coming to my website, which is my name, soniachoquette.com. And I have books there. I have online courses. Maybe someone wants a personal consultation. I also have an app that I just created called, and you can go on and get it. It's called Lead with Intuition. Has a few glitches, so give it 2 or 3 days. We're working those out, but it's hours of free content to uplift and guide and inspire you through these times. So that's another real simple way to, it's got some meditations, it's got some blogs, it's got some online courses, a lot of things to get you going, and they're all free. So check it out, and it'll entertain you on those times when you're at home and don't know what to do.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure everybody will be very keen to check out all your work. So on that note, I will say goodbye to our Facebook Live.